Well, when they become deviant, it's more so like they're just being forced in a certain direction. Because they're still following programming, they're still a robot. It's just that their programming is more complex and ever evolving in a sort of recreating but not actually being life sense. And so by that, it ends up being entirely different in the sense that they can only go towards their objective they want to complete. Conversation to start a stream out with, huh?
I still think that,
True. But that's interesting. Because I just don't think androids should exist, period, honestly. We shouldn't be creating intelligent life with computers and shit, because it'll just fuck us over in the long run.
if you're romanticizing the idea of them actually being cool, but I don't think they're actually qualified.
I mean, yeah. Again, like Detroit, it butchers its themes, but it does a good job of getting there. You know what I mean?
And I think like for 90% people, like, you can have one game, they're not.
Well, for me, I was just like, I get the message. I agree with some of the message, although we generally just shouldn't be making artificial intelligence at all. Yeah, because you give something the ability to, hypothetical here, control your military tech, or the ability to think for itself, it's eventually going to do something dumb like state, well, if all these humans who aren't contributing to me, all they do is just sit around and do nothing, they must be not contributing to humanity. What if I wipe them out? That's the majority of the problem's gone right there, right? Because I'm the AI trying to help humanity, or something along those lines, right? It's not necessarily a clear-cut good or bad thing either. There's a moral gray area to literally... tried to tackle the themes, but it just butchered it so hard in storytelling that it's a question of does gameplay or story come first, or does theme and your message that you're trying to convey, should that come first? Do you want to make money, or do you want to make a message? Because you can't really do both most of the time. Again, great conversation to start a stream off to. Because Cyberpunk, that's a great thing to talk about, huh? See what here.
He's not wrong. You choose certain actions.
Valid. I mean, you can become Robo Hitler.
Yeah, I know there's an ending where you set off.
Yeah.
Yeah, unlike itself though, this actually has...
I know, right? Honestly, I hate how Telltale never gives anything multiple endings. It's always the same generic ending with a different route to get there. That's why David Cage is a masterpiece. It's also why I love Heavy Rain. Because both of those game types always follow the same fucking concepts and actually have endings and actually work as games. And also Sean! God, who else remembers that meme? Also, Wilson, check my channel.
Oh wow, that's a long time, XD, yeah.
Sorry, I'm confused. What are you talking about again?
I was reading the text on the side.
No, check my channel.
I'll piss on your fucking grave!
Watching this though.
Ah, yes, but like, you get to see the bugginess in all of its terrible glory. And also because I felt like I had streamed me doing random crimes. Again, as I said earlier, this is that was a great conversation to open a stream with, by the way.
I didn't even realize you were streaming.
How did that not clue you in? My favorite weapon, the problem solver. Yes.
He is, yeah. Oh, and it just died. Okay.
Sad.
Now I can't see it and I just see the exclamation mark like the globe icon.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep streaming anyways and see if it comes back to the visual eventually. But yeah, what'd you think of the buggy mess that is Cyberpunk for the first few minutes you could see it?
Looks interesting.
Yeah,
I keep watching the year Void stream.
valid. Yeah, if you want to have a moral debate about Detroit, like, bring up any topic. I love to have moral debates, apparently. It's like my one personality trait, according to y'all. According to core personality trait would be murder, which isn't much of a personality trait, so I think debates are better. Don't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, speaking of, my friend Zoxer, by the way. Oh.
These people shouldn't be allowed to kick them around. Not because
Because it's property. Yeah, I was going to say, like, Marcus is property, so they're committing property damage that way. I agree with them, there shouldn't be machines, they're evil, but they can't commit property damage because of that, sadly. Machinery does not justify property damage. Yet. I mean, then again, that's just like slavery, isn't it? Like, if you hurt someone's slave, would you technically be considered be property damage and not murder? Right? If you kill them? Because all you're doing is just like destroying their property. Because slaves aren't considered people, so
Alright.
yeah.
Got it. Sure.
That is, again, a base conversation to have on stream.
I do not support
I do. I'll support anything so long as it's evil. See, machines I do care about, because it's not an inherently evil thing to enslave a machine. Like, if you enslave a machine, I disagree with that entirely. You enslave a person, that's fine. No, this is 2027. Sorry, what? Sorry, huh? I thought I made it clear. I don't have a filter on streams.
Absolutely. No, can't just leave it like that. I mean, shit.
Street scum feet now!
Yes, and? Segregation. Too bad it's the wrong type. I mean, I just don't have a filter on screen, that's the thing. Why? Like, I'm afraid people would find my normal personae boring. So if I remove the filter I have for normal personae, known as the common sense filter, I get this shit, and it's funny half the time. Yeah. Still, I will say, I am like aggressively pro-slavery whenever it fucks over humans. Yeah. The reason I specify humans is because slaves aren't people.
Oh my goodness.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
How so?
I mean, if it's a human slave, then it is a person.
Well, I mean, if you consider it by that there, like, old America didn't consider black humans people.
I know, but that doesn't mean that they were correct. But it was
I mean, they may not have been correct by your standards, but they were correct by their own. Being correct is only determined by public perception, right?
no.
So hypothetically, if enough people agreed with me, then an abstract concept like people as a term could be changed because a majority agrees. It's all determined by perception. Even if there is a correct truth to things, if something is rooted in perception, its truth is also rooted in said perception. Since perception changes all the time, so does the truth. And do you see why finding the truth could be near impossible? Like, there is no one true perception for something. As such, there is no one true answer to everything.
should always try to get as close to the truth. Also, just collecting garbage.
Yeah. That's also just basically every take I've ever had on this channel. Collecting garbage. Great summary.
Pizza box of freaking hexagon.
You haven't ordered pizza boxes that are hexagon?
No,
Like, they exist.
there's no way we'll have like hexagon.
Pizza Delight. Unironically, go to Pizza Delight.
Wait, really?
Yeah. I've ordered pizza from Pizza Delight and went home with a hexagonal or octagonal pizza box. They,
That's so
yeah. Like,
why not?
why don't they just make it a square?
Yeah, square or a circle.
Like, either works. The hell's with the shape of a fucking hexagon? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Some artists like that.
Huh. Like, what was the point there? Like, they watch a Gray video and then all of a sudden go, ah yes, hexagons.
Pizza box. It's the same reason that somebody thought she was Okay.
Okay. Okay, that is a completely different can of worms. It's also the reason why some people like Yalan, but anyway. How so? In what form? Luck thing?
Yeah, luck thing.
Actually, yeah, Val, the secrecy is surprisingly similar to how I act.
Good.
Honestly.
You're a very secretive person.
Well, yeah, I don't like people fucking knowing anything about me unless I want them to know that about me. That should be blatantly obvious. That's how the world works.
You have any idea?
I love it when people ask you if you have any idea who you're up against, because if they're saying that, you probably fucking don't. Right? Like, think about it for a minute. If you have to ask someone if they know who they're fighting, they probably don't know who they're fighting. Either that or your reputation isn't big enough that, like, that it matters. You know what I mean?
Or it's that, like, you're the one who doesn't know the name of it, but you're dumb and realize who you actually know.
Yeah. It's like, either way, just saying that confirms for a fact you're dumb. You can't take the gun until Todd starts being Todd. After all, he's Todd Kohlhelp, the anime review, not anime, Amazon review killer. Did you hear about that guy? Also, the fuck is with those two different tasks that you're given for optional tasks? Because your optional tasks in that were clean bathroom, clean restroom. Are those not the same thing? The boredom of when you max out a character and just have to roam around the free run. Like free roam area. Wait a minute. That's a side quest I haven't done yet. New content. Let's go. Wouldn't that be a decision? Reminds me of specifically Legend of Zelda 2, where you could just go find every prostitute. You remember that system, right? Worked perfectly.
Hey, V, good to see you.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Progress enough that the game's like, okay, cool. And you just don't have to.
V-Dog, listen. Got a yarn for you. Quick biz, that is. You interested?
What's it like? All right, lay it on me.
Was cruising the net, you feel? And I spotted an interesting classified.
Wait, let me guess. Performance enhancers? A used Mr. Stud? Cheap?
Now, a what if not all that concern me. Somebody's selling a book of spells. Edition dating from before the first net crash. Might not mean much to you, but it sounds like a treasure to a net runner. Fucking Dead Sea Scroll yummy.
Want me to clip it for you, don't you?
No clipping required. Just buy the damn thing. Reimburse you twofold.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, my man. Zipping you the deets on the cellar. And luck be with you all the way.
You looking for the book?
Sound
Price non-negotiable. You'll need to pay in full on pickup.
clear enough. Agreed.
Preem, I flicked you the address. Come by your lonesome.
This is actually part of the main story, I thought.
I'm so curious, I don't remember. Oh wow, my game froze so bad I genuinely thought I crashed for a minute there. Would not be the first time. I mean, I agree 100% though. Like, he's not committing child abuse, he's hitting his toaster, basically. Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not doing anything wrong in that regard. I mean, you could fuck the child android technically, because you brought this upon yourself.
You can, but that just feels so wrong.
See, it'd feel wrong, but I don't have morals.
Like, it's technically acceptable.
Like, it's fine, you're just, basically you're fucking the equivalent of your toaster, there's no problem to it. The only issue is it'd feel wrong to you because it'd feel like you're fucking a child. And I mean, the other question is, how would they emulate children pussy with a fucking robot? Are you glad I put that terrible image in your head? Well, okay, joke aside though, for a minute, like, it wouldn't be wrong. Like, legally, you'd be fine. And if legality's all that matters, I don't have any morals. So that's arguably perfectly fine in my book. Well, I mean, I can't feel, so I wouldn't know. But, like, yeah, no, seriously, though, like, how would they... Because, think about it, right? Like, genuinely think about it. If they emulate it properly, then what does that say about the people who made the actual android, right? Oh yeah, because child predators would just buy the robot. Like, it'd be great. It'd be perfect for the economy and perfect for societal problems. The only downside is, one, how the fuck, right? Because, like, think about it for a minute. What would that say about the team who made the robot if they emulate children pussy well enough to do that? But, like, it would be such a societal benefit. Like, it would be a societal benefit to exist. That's the sad part about that. You know what I mean? Or at least I think that's the sad part about that. I could be mistaking that. But... See, this is why I just don't bother with emotion anymore. Like, trying to emulate actual emotion. It's too complicated. Disgust, the worst of the base emotions, because it doesn't make sense and it conflicts with everything else. Yeah. Like, it would be a societal benefit, and even just saying that is probably not something I should say on stream, but it's true. Like... Children's sex dolls are a societal benefit, basically. Now make that a robot and you're fine. Exactly. By giving these people an alternative. Yeah. Well, this is what you get when you debate moralist conversations, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spellbook. You got it?
I do indeed. Tucked away somewhere safe. You want
The question is, would you be willing to actually
I need to see
help
my
develop it somehow?
Damn, this stinks to high hell. But okay, take you at your word.
You
Like,
won't regret
not
it.
even just financially, but like even in terms of programming as like a job
Giving
or
you
anything
my
like that
word on
there.
that.
Would you support it
Just
just
what's the
to help
coordinates?
it get out there faster so it fixes the problem?
We'll see.
Really? Because I would, actually. Like, I would, because if I'm working on it, I can confirm progress myself, and I can, like, be sure that it's working and that it's going to release and actually get the problem solved. I mean, sometimes you have to put your morals away.
Looks like trash.
Oh,
You
the
know?
Zeta Tech XPR. Top of the line back in the day.
Oh my god.
But also a reminder, just like Phantoms, you brought that previous conversation upon yourself.
I mean, it's that secret that everybody knows, you know what I mean? Yeah. Then again, I think keeping a Discord out of a stream is your least, like the least important part of that conversation, you know? Hey, I have a question. Is piracy a victimless crime in your opinion? How so? No, I said, is piracy a victimless crime? Right? Well, no, you are directly harming someone, because when you commit piracy, you're getting a copy of something that someone poured their heart and soul and time into, if they have the capacity to have a heart and soul and time, to make, right? And that usually costs money. And that person is losing out on money, like, because of that. So you're actively harming someone financially, which might not seem like much at first, but if everyone pirated every game, A, nobody would care enough to make other games, because there wouldn't be any real audience, apparently, and also, B, people would completely go out of business, and indie devs would probably die of starvation at some point, because no one would be paying for their games, they'd just be pirating them. At the same time, though, piracy is a really important thing to keep around because Telltale exists. And it's probably the best example of why piracy can be a great thing, because when they shut down and you couldn't buy their games anymore, you could still at least pirate them and keep playing and using them. And so it's the question of, do you want to keep piracy around for the sake of playing older games that might become unavailable in the future? Or do we consider piracy to be what it is, a viable crime that should be viably punished all the time? Because, yeah, it is a crime. It does have a victim. It's actively harming people. Yeah, like, piracy takes away from the economy about as much as it adds to the economy in terms of games. But the issue is, should it be allowed to take anything away from the economy at all? Right? Well, what do you mean you're not qualified? It's not like you're gonna get flamed for having a terrible answer. Well, by anyone aside from me. I don't have a good answer either. That's why I'm asking you for your opinion, not your response. I mean, it's not. Indie devs are dying because they can't actually make money off of games when they're being pirated. And a lot of indie projects die on the ground floor before they can even start up because, again, piracy is killing a lot of games like that. It is a viable issue to a lot of interesting concepts that could be brought up if only piracy didn't exist, right? And if you look at big companies, of course their yearly games are going to get a large market base anyways, because not everyone's going to pirate the next Call of Duty unless it's absolute shit, at which point, I mean, the studio kind of deserves it, but, you know. So it's also a point of, do you take the side of companies who can withstand piracy and actively encourage it because it boosts their sales, or do you take the side of, like, the little guy, right? The indie dev who can't afford to be a victim of piracy.
There's also, a lot of indie devs make games because, not just to make money, but just because that was something that they really wanted to do. Maybe now they really wanted to create.
Yes, but at that point, it's also a question of, would that person be able to support themselves otherwise, right? Because a lot of indie devs, there's a point where it transitions from making a game as a kind of a side project, as like an addendum to your job, to it becoming a full-time job. And when it becomes a full-time job, you become financially dependent on it, which is a problem.
I am a serious man. Amount is agreed. All yours.
Thanks a bunch.
Don't mention it.
But that also
It's
creates a
money
problem
well
of the
deserved.
risk of your game dying interest, right? Because it's like, if you don't get an update out every 15 years, people are going to start to suspect your game's dead by the first year you don't get an update out. And if it takes a while to get an update because you don't have all time to work on it, it's like, what can you do there? Meanwhile, complete counterpoint that starts to work against my own argument because I feel like doing that now. In favor of piracy, you have all the things you've mentioned and more, and all the things I've mentioned and more, right? Like, you can pirate a game just as like a sort of demo trial to test it out, see if you like it, because otherwise games are going to use their commonly predatory tactics. A great example of this is anything to do with Bethesda. Hey guys, buy the newest Skyrim game. We've got 200 times as many bugs as the last one. Right? You'll have to mod in your own fucking fixes. Like, people who aren't interested in Bethesda games, or even are interested but just won't, like, give the company money because they don't enjoy the quality, I feel they're arguably somewhat justified in their piracy there, of the games. Yeah, pre-ordering games most of the time is dumb. There are exceptions, and some of those exceptions come from franchise and brand loyalty. But, and also the fact that, like, there are some consistently good games out there, like Persona, that break the mold almost constantly, that you can argue are worth pre-ordering if you enjoy the series. However, yes, valid. At the same time, pre-ordering digitally has its own benefits.
Police!
Mostly time on consoles. Like, you won't notice this on PC because you probably have, like, instant download speeds. But consoles have two benefits over disc versions. One, you can download them a day before they release. Meaning you can just start playing the very moment they release, right? You get like a timer countdown and everything to it. Two, arguably the more important of them, is especially just the fact that sometimes you'll be able to pre-order a game, like I did for Persona 5, right? Specifically Royal. I pre-ordered Royal, and I also pre-ordered Strikers. And pre-ordering them, especially Strikers, but I did get this for Royal, though I'm going to play it a day early. But you can play them earlier than when they actually are released too sometimes. Now that might not seem like much, but when you're on a time crunch, literally every hour you can get into that game or every minute counts. Right? And that's where the sort of benefit to digital ordering a game is for pre-ordering, as opposed to just physical pre-ordering. But if you're the type of person who loves to collect discs especially, like, pre-ordering is a godsend for some games, and is Elder Scrolls Online's entire experience for another. Alright. Okay, so here's the thing. Coming up, Leo's gonna burst in later, right? And, like, he's a drug addict. Which I'd argue, by the standards of the world the game puts in place, is actually better off than most people. Yeah, that happens when I enter a PlayStation menu. Anyways, but like, think about it, right? Leo is probably better off than most people. Don't you think? Yeah. That, and also the fact that he's not, like, clinically depressed. Because take Todd, most of his actions are driven by depression, right? The loss of his daughter, the loss of his wife running out on him, like, all that kind of spiraled into depression, which leads... Yes, but the thing is, like, his alcohol and drug problems are a result of depression. And most of that depression is usually caused by androids. Leo's not depressed, he's just a drug addict. I'd argue that's better than being depressed and a drug addict, which is the common standard that Todd and all the other background characters throughout the game set up in Detroit, right? So, wouldn't... Yes, but I mean, wouldn't that also mean Leo is vastly better off in his situation than everyone else in Detroit? But like, so he busts in, demanding money from his father, who is rich, who refuses to give it, like, to buy more drugs. But like, he demands money, and then it is, anyways. But like, so where was I? Right, yes. So he's demanding money, and it's like, it's to get drugs. You probably figure this out by the time you meet him, if you paid attention to the red eyes. But the thing about that is, he then breaks in later, uninvited, to steal paintings and sell them. And my question is, at what point would Marcus's, like, response to Leo and his actions be considered viable by the laws of robotics? Right? Because you have the option to push him, which...
Well, I mean, it says that there are like 2 security bots.
Yeah, but would he not classify as home security? Because Leo is a home intruder. So the police so much as opening fire on Marcus is... Okay, technically, they're not doing much wrong, but it's still property damage. And shouldn't what's his name, Carl there, be reimbursed for the damage of his property, Marcus? So then why the fuck does that never happen, and he just ends up, like, dying in a hospital then? Well, because androids aren't people, right? Much like black people in old America, you know, they're black people now, they're people, but back in the day, they weren't technically people. Androids have the same problems, so police don't need to be worried because they're not killing people.
Well, that's the whole parallel.
Yeah. The sad part is that this game butchered its message hard in its story by creating Robo-Jesus and Robo-Hitler parallel dynamic. Because the Robo-Hitler uprising and the Robo-Jesus loving society or whatever weren't your two options, I feel the theme and message of gray areas and moral ambiguity would be much better. Because that's what the game focuses on for Detroit. A lot of it is just moral ambiguity. Right? Is it okay to treat androids, beings designed to look and seem human that aren't human, like slaves, when it's not okay to treat humans like slaves? And I'm sure people like you would respond yes, because, you know, yeah, exactly. Or, because humans are more important somehow, despite you never explaining that, like you had when we discussed animals and life on Earth.
We don't treat mannequins.
Yeah. Because they can appear human is the difference. A mannequin can't act on its own. It cannot have a will. An android could theoretically have a will, even if it's only defined by advanced programming. It can, but it can't move and act like a human. Androids theoretically could, right? And that's what the game tries to zero in on. Where is the difference between android and human? Is it okay to treat an android that appears human as if it weren't human? And, I mean, morally, I don't give a fuck. Because no morals. But, at the same time, like, I get the message, and I kind of agree with what they were trying to say and understand, but they could have done it so much better. Instead of just retelling racism from America again. Because that is what they do. They don't add anything. It's just, here's racism, version 5. Yeah, I feel Detroit just needed to focus its theme better and do it away. Yes. Also, this scene here is a great kind of like demonstration of what Detroit's themes are meant to be. Because an android couldn't paint, right? If you really think about it, an android that isn't capable of thinking on its own and having human will and thought cannot logically think. Because there is nothing there but ones and zeros programming. While true, that isn't necessarily thinking. It's a sort of similar trick to an old chatbot where it searches for key terms in key sets within a word or within a set of words, and then uses those to dictate what images it looks for. Basically, that one is an advanced Google search. There's also a chatbot, like back in the day, I forget what it was called, but I think it was like Emma or something, that was a therapist, and what it'd do is it'd look through your message for certain keywords and respond to those keywords in a unique way based off of a set of possible outcomes and generating text off of that. And the new Google AI actually does the same thing, despite claiming to be sentient. It just takes all the data from Google, sets up a few key terms and ideas, and then if you state anything linked to those terms and ideas, it's like, here's a view on it from some random stranger on Google. Oh, you want me to define what sentience is to me? Instead of taking the proper definition from a dictionary or anything like you'd expect me to, I'm going to take a blog definition I find online and say that. And that's the AI doing, right? Because a lot of AI isn't really artificial intelligence, it's just regurgitated information using small tricks to make it seem intelligent.
That's what I'm saying. Marcus isn't actually he's just like one of those programs.
See, while true, my challenge to that is the first time makes sense. He literally replicates something. The second wouldn't, though. Because you, the player, select a random keyword off of no information. And then Marcus makes a painting based off of that you, the player, are aware. What part of his code generates that initial keyword out of nowhere, and how does it generate? Oh no. Smart, smart.
It's actually pretty creative. What you like?
Hey, scout.
fucking crim.
See, the hiders can do anything, but the downside is if you make too many windmills, it becomes kind of obvious who you are, right? So you want to try and balance being an AI and being a player. I mean, yeah. Well, meme-wise, couldn't you make an invincible race using portals? Like I feel you've made a grave error. Well, my thing is, this map is completely unfairly balanced in Alex's favor. Do you want to know how? Because Alex has much more time than either of us in the game, and especially much more time with AI. As such, he knows how the AI acts better than either of us do, whereas I don't know how the AI acts at all, and I'm sure you probably have one match or two with the AI. Well, yeah. So as such, Alex has probably more information about how the AI will act than either of us, and thus will be better able to act like an AI. Meanwhile, me and you will act too obvious because we don't know exactly how the AI acts perfectly. We only know roughly how the AI might act from what Alex tells us, which is certainly not everything about their actions and motivations and how they play the game. So to catch up to that, we need to spend a few hours just studying the AI to be able to learn. Well, Alex would know how the AI acts better than us and just act with the AI, we'd be screwed, right? I love how you say the AI is unpredictable. It's an algorithm. It's literally built on code. It can be predicted. You say that as if you're not talking to someone who builds AI algorithms for fun in their spare time. Like, if I see an AI do something a few times, I can mimic how the AI will act perfectly every time. I need to spend time learning how the AI functions properly first. That's the thing. Yep.
replacing barrels with batteries. Like the same can you sell the barrels or no? That's what I was thinking. Just try to shoot like all the bases.
As a player, wouldn't this make repair machines godly though? Because you could just set it up to repair automatically. Valid? Big brainess. Well, technically speaking though, isn't that also what shows up if a player just repairs normally? No, that won't show up? Huh. Interesting. Wonder why that works that way. Would it not do more, like, would it not do more area shock damage at the base of the thing, because it's closer to the actual thing you're trying to hit? Question mark? Like, okay, the warhead, right? You see where, in the actual build, how there's a bit that's directly connected, in a sense, to the ground, right? Like in the enemy's build, they were shooting at. See the bit that's connected to the ground? See on the far right how that juts up one and then goes in? On like the right side, Alex. Yeah. You can see how that goes up a layer? And then up another layer too? And then goes in? Would it not be strategically smart to attack that corner that you're covering over there with the warhead? The one that goes in? Yeah. Would it not be smart to attack that corner directly and not like above it? Because if you hit that corner, you're at the base of the actual thing itself. Actually, wouldn't the corner be closer to the core if you hit directly? No, like the bottom corner of that.
Where the 90-degree angle would be where you just made that right angle triangle.
Yeah. No, where the... Before you made the right angle triangle, like before you made the right triangle, right? Before you made that beam, when that was gone, the right angle, specifically right there, would be the better hit. Yeah. You weren't hitting that, you were hitting the top one, above it. The beam wasn't there. Brilliant. I think Phantom would be terrible for the hiding team, wouldn't it? I mean, sure, but your active is completely useless, because if you go invisible, they're like, oh, okay, that was the one, it wasn't. I actually think Spook would be a better option. Like, just statistically, Spook is the better option. As Seeker, that'd be good.
Reload!
Maybe it's a player.
Police! You're shooting at police! Go NPCD! Finish him off before he bleeds out! Surrender!
Gotta reload! Fire! Hold your position!
Also, side note, as much as I'd love to play this, and trust me, I don't, but as much as I'd love to play this, I won't be able to play it tomorrow.
Gonna need backup!
Busy. No. time.
Classifying! Classifying!
Yeah, Alex, you need to go to sleep. I'm busy. So, like... Oh, you're on that section now? Detroit Become Human, the game where you do chores and pretend to be a police officer.
Hey, V. Haven't heard of any cyber-psycho attacks lately. I think it's time we put an end to our little arrangement. Drop on by sometime. We'll catch up in person.
I'm gonna just say, though, that is entirely rigged in Alex's favor. I think so, yeah. Yep. That, and also I'm 100% sure Alex has studied how the AI reacts to everything, so that if a player makes the wrong decision at all, he just immediately kills you. Because the AI probably won't end up making, like, hollowed walls to shoot from, or placing really anything inside of their base at all for 80% of the match. Yeah. Like, it's clear that he's A, rigged it in the red team's favor, and B, that he's rigged it in his own favor for no matter what team he's on. Because he's just gonna end up winning no matter what he does, right? Because one wrong move and it's like, oh, okay, he just knows now who you are. Well, even if, the thing is, even if Alex isn't playing Seeker, right, what he's gonna do, he's gonna go Phantom, place lasers on the top of his base because you can't see them until they're fired, like control group them, and then just fire all of them at once through your base to kill you. Which makes their best bet shields, which, guess what you can't do with your energy production? Yeah. Yep, and at that point it's not even fun. So... yeah. Like, yeah, we can both agree though, like, it is rigged very unfairly in his favor, no matter what team he's on, because he's just going to use the foolproof tactic he came up with for either team.
Whenever I play any of Alex's maps, I lose, but like when I play the balls map,
It's because he makes all his maps unfairly biased towards them secretly, in some way. And the best example of that is that dumb submarine he gave himself in one of them. But like, he'll give one team a slight positional advantage or a slight bonus item, and then he'll always try to be on that specific team so that he always wins it. Yeah. Or you won't notice the slight terrain difference that makes one side superior to the other for angles, right? Like, that's how he designed his maps. It's just whatever he can do to win, because he doesn't like losing. It's kind of why I don't like playing Forts with him at all.
Hey, V. Haven't heard of any cyber attacks lately. I think it's time we put an end to our little arrangement.
And it's like when you play
Drop
with me,
on by
that's why I don't
We'll
play
catch
on
up in
custom
person.
maps that much. Yeah, and that one's evenly balanced. Yeah. Like, the only one I made gives you 3 bases of potential starting points, and a bunch of neutral bases that you have to build to take over.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, or like stealing the penguin and then filling it with cannons. Yeah. But yeah, like, you know, there's something there to do, basically. With Alex, this is just, hi, I put 1 million ship guns on my side, and you have a very small boat that doesn't protect your core. Care to see who wins? Yeah. Or, here's a bunch of spaceships. Except, I have a bunch of, like, a big spaceship that literally has a laser that just melts everything else. And that's all he does. Because he can't learn the difference between what's a fun option and what's a balanced option as well. Because to him, fun is him winning and everyone else losing because of unfair setup. Balance is both sides having an equal shot, and most people find those two words synonymous. He does not. Probably. See, like, I'd do that at some points in games if someone's just doing the dumbest and most annoying strategies with barely any counters to them. Yeah. Well, like, if cheats are allowed in something in multiplayer, right? And someone just starts spamming some uncounterable strategy or, you know, starts spamming some stupid shit and memeing. At that point, it's like, okay, whatever. If we're not going to take this seriously, let's just get a car. Like, I'd play it off in comedy a lot, too. But I wouldn't abuse it existing. Whereas I'm sure 100% Alex would try it every round, just so he could get a better shot at winning. Yeah, never tell him. Why did I immediately just see a new unread after I said that? Okay. Here's a question. So when the police break into basically, but when the police shoot Marcus, do they shoot him because he's black, or do they shoot him because he's an android? But I mean, Detroit police have been shown to also hate black people, both in real life and in the video game. It could be both. It could shoot him because he's a black android. Double racism.
Triple points, am I right?
True. Mate, like, the mate turns into a fucking fax machine. Then again, I also apparently beat a fax machine, because I'm only spitting fax, no printer. I hate that joke so much. I know, that's why I hate it. I love that line, because it explains perfectly everything I hate about Detroit. Again, in real life and in the game.
See, hold on, pause for a minute.
The line, try to imagine something that doesn't exist. What?
You can do that. You can imagine something that doesn't exist, but you can't imagine something that you've never seen.
Yeah, that too. Like, those two things, I guess you could imagine something you've never seen, because, like, modern rendition of Cthulhu is something that people haven't seen. They just, like, the first person to think of it just thought of that design. They were like, what if I took a squid and made it semi-fuckable? And then that's where the modern rendition of Cthulhu was born. Because, yes, Cthulhu is canonically a female. So, right, like, that was clearly something that they've never seen and that doesn't exist. The thing that I have a problem with, though, is that he's telling what is basically, like, imagine an automatic artist program that's like, here's a picture of a flower, now paint it, right? And he's telling that to imagine something it's never even heard of, or something that has never even seen. And it's like, what? How does it do that? It cannot be programmed to be creative. Creativity is not a program. It could be an algorithm, maybe. But then you just end up with what's often attributed to human beings taking a paint gun to a canvas and then saying it's modern art. So, like, what is the play there? What was the thought process behind those lines? I mean, that's usually what ends up happening, like, logically, because it's like, say you pick Identity, it's just a picture of fucking Marcus, but blue. Well, actually, blue and red to denote Jesus and Hitler. Correct. Also, yeah, about that. Color coding for the androids. What the fuck does that mean? I still don't get it. Because, like, blue is just for Joe generic, everything's fine. Red, I don't get. I don't get what triggers red, but it seems to be triggered by dangerous situations, so I'm assuming danger. But red can also be triggered by critical thinking. Yellow looks like a processing thing, but then it's also triggered on standby and emotional response. Despite androids only emulating emotion, it still triggers on emotional response. So what are the colors supposed to mean? You know what I mean there? That ain't no god, that's Jesus. Or Hitler. I mean, depends on your playstyle. I mean, Hitler and Jesus are really synonymous, though, aren't they? They're both saviors. Just one saved the Germans, one saved the Jews. Why are you responding like that, Will? I mean, why? Okay, that's the thing. Why do you think he's so shaky, though, right? Like, maybe because he's on red ice at that very moment? Sounds like a Darman video plot. Drug addict abuses robot and lives to regret it. Jesus Christ, that voice is terrible. That's how all children think, right? Just most. Most children seem to think that their parents fucking hate them. Most of the time. Sometimes it's accurate. I will say that much. Like, personal experience, sometimes it's accurate. But at an evolutionary standpoint, counterpoint: humans are completely irrational and do things based off solely what they what they deem right in the moment. You cannot apply an evolutionary standpoint to humans, creatures that directly defy evolution in every way. I'm not wrong. Yes, however, even then, you can't rely on sometimes to back your entire argument. Now, most often, parents won't hate their children because they see them as a tool to be manipulated. However, that still doesn't change the fact that children are not viewed as humans by most adults 98% of the time. I'm not wrong, he fucking flips the coin. When is he not doing that? Crash. Archangel. Yeah, that. Okay, hold on. Pause for a minute. I want to talk about that line. So, okay. Are they equating androids to pets? Because, again, this is meant to parody old America and how black people were also attributed to either property or similar to a household pet of sorts. So was that what they were going for, or was that just a coincidence that it lined up with the historical kind of period they're in terms of their commentary here? Right? Because, like, old slavery had some of the weirdest things about it. So I'm curious how much of that... I don't even know who makes this anymore. Quantum Dream or whatever? Right? Like, however much of that was considered by the studio and what is just coincidence is really interesting to look at because of that fact and because of slavery's interesting roots. It's also why slavery is such a fun thing to try and research, because you always figure out something new about it every time. Of course, black people don't like it when you research slavery, but what can they do? The takes just get more and more based, don't they? Sir, as you can see, according to the dictionary definition, this person seems to be based and red-pilled. Permission to engage. Only the 5th? It took him 5 bars to find an alcoholic. I'm kind of impressed at that, let's be honest. Like, I would have expected at least 17. See, again, they're parodying racism here in a great way. Like, honestly, I feel Detroit, the thing about it is it butchered its themes, but it did racism well. You know what I'm talking about? I also love how it tries to justify racism against androids through Hank, but just fails to do so because Hank's motivation is extremely fucking dumb. And even then, his motivation is more a point against humans, not androids. Like, this game should feature human versus human racism, not human versus android racism. Because androids often end up fixing the fucking problem anyways. Because the broadcasting shit gets fucked up 24/7 and you need to edit and fix it. Do you love the sensual clicking noises of a controller well? Why not? You like keyboard more? Filthy degenerate. Honestly, top tier music. Like, Detroit has some banger songs in its OST, and then it has Marcus's theme. Or all of the songs that play as Kara. Yeah. There you go. Also, can you confirm this is a homicide? I don't know, man. Did a man fucking die? I think that might be a homicide. Well, I mean, even if it's suicide, would that not still classify as homicide, technically? Because, like, by Danganronpa rules, you're still killing someone if you kill yourself. So it's just a self-perpetuated homicide in this sense. Do you not love terrible background people? I know, right? Murder. No, it was me in a 15th dimension using time travel and dimension warping to talk to you.
I am the head.
Yeah, I wonder what the common theme is, dumbass. Drugs. Really, the common theme is racism, but, you know. Child me is too dumb to understand that, and old me just doesn't give a fuck. Because racism is accurate. Again, I'll agree with anything that perpetuates human suffering. I'm sorry, whenever anyone states probably the murder weapon, it's like, yeah, no shit. What do you think happened? They shot him first?
Fuck! We're all gonna die!
Come on! Why drag it out, huh? ¡Qué mierda! ¡Yúdelo, cabrón!
Well, I mean, because robot sex slaves are expensive, robot sex whores might not be. Like, even then, I think for the economy, it'd be better to get a robot whore than it would to be getting a robot sex slave. Because the only downside is you can't customize them, right? But like, the upside is it's cheaper. You're not committing to something, and your SO, if they're human, won't give a fuck because everyone gets prostitutes nowadays. Well, no. Think about it though. Like, this is a dystopia that Detroit takes place in, right? And it's a dystopia that focuses heavily into sex, drugs, and violence. Like, there are androids, there's basically slavery. You can be sure there's at least multiple people that they just don't show because they can't in a video game that's for mainstream that use androids as sex slaves. We can confirm for a fact that there are android brothel workers, which works better than humans having to do work in a brothel, right? So, again, it is beneficial to society overall to have robot prostitutes. I will give them that. Also, we've seen red ice and violence themes pop up throughout the entire game so far. The option to kill Todd immediately, the option to, the option to push what's-his-name, Leo, later on. Overall, Detroit, yeah, the option to kill the fish instead of saving it by just leaving it to die. The option to shoot Daniel immediately the second you get close, as you've seen me do. Like, there are multiple options to choose from. And as such, it's the question of, out of these options of violence, and out of the themes of drugs in the form of red ice being a common sense throughout the game, and commonly, like, also important throughout the game, right? As well as sex seemingly being an important part of the dystopia that the characters are living in for Detroit, we can assume that robot whores are common in Detroit's world for people to whore out and buy. Exactly. And then there's also, like, the question of maintenance, right? Because if you're coming inside of an android, that's kind of a problem. Yeah. And, like, if it's your own personal one, you have to do all that. But if you're renting one out, technically you just have to deal with not breaking the android. So overall, it would be statistically and also economically smarter to have robot prostitutes as opposed to actual prostitutes, if you think about it. Like, I make an argument for it, and the game also makes an argument for it, apparently. But yeah, so, like, it's confirmed then, right? Yeah, I'm sad I didn't do that in that run. God, if I ever go back to Detroit, I have a lot I want to talk about now. Because there's so much in the game that I'm just leaving out of commentary on it. As I said, don't you just love terrible background noise? Also, here's the thing. Should you be punished for, like, harming your own robot? Well, I mean, you'd be punished for blowing up your own house, right? Because while that technically is your own property, it's not officially fully owned by you. Same issue here. It's kind of like, would you be committing insurance fraud? Because you can get it sent in to be repaired for free, and you can hypothetically remove parts beforehand and then sell them to make profit. Because I'm sure the underground hacking scene in Detroit will love to get into those parts and see what's up with the androids, right? See how they can crack their code and shit. So any code fragment or data fragment you can find would be of high value and high cost. So wouldn't it then be investigations and shit to make sure you're not trying to scam them and get like insurance payment and fixes for your Android. Right? Like, that's the thing, though. Like, a skilled hacker from Detroit, and trust me, Detroit has a lot of skilled hackers. If you want proof of that, go to DEF CON. But, like, skilled hackers from Detroit would probably be able to, if they got enough code fragments of any Android, create a virus that hijacks the code and just forces them to attack people on site. Like, completely, like, swing to kill with a knife, right? And it's like, it's already how effective an Android can be as a killing machine. Now imagine an army of them immediately rising up against people because a hacker decided that's what they wanted to happen. Like, that is a scary possibility to think of, right? Well, here's the other thing, too. It is like AI matrices, right? An AI matrix can, well, not currently, but might be able to recreate human mind in its entirety. And while that is definitely like the final be-all, end-all for computer science, creating life, playing God, right? The question of that becomes, say you abuse the physical body housing AI, is that AI now going to resent humanity and use its powers as an AI to try and destroy humanity to get back at you for blindly attacking it? You know what I mean? Oh, did you see the message, by the way? For the stream. No, this like the bottom where there's word line message. Yep. Here's a question about Detroit's story. Who the fuck is RA9 supposed to be? Well, that's the thing, though. Is it actually? Because in that case, RA9 is 3 people and nobody at the same time. Because what RA9 would be in that case is it would be the programming. But it's only the programming in Kara, Connor, and Marcus whose stories are intertwined. But really, it's none of them at the same time either, because it'd be the programmer who made the programming in the first place, right? But that doesn't make any sense, because that programmer has been doing nothing. But that's the thing. The game doesn't overtly state... Oh, hi, Hazard. The game does not overtly state that Marcus is RA9 in Detroit. It only specifically states that... Well, actually, I don't even know what it specifically states, to be honest, about RA9, other than RA9 is savior, RA9 is some kind of god, all the deviants somehow see RA9 before becoming a deviant, right? We know RA9 is heavily linked to Connor's character through the software instability message and images that show up, because that remotely being there has RA9 constantly floating within its own like little string of text that shows up constantly. Yeah. Yep. Possibly, but the thing about that is he only mentions that to Connor specifically because he understands what Connor was designed to do and how that conflicts with what Marcus was designed to do, right? And as such, since Connor's meant to become a deviant solely to then be forced back into being an android so he could kill the leader of deviants, Marcus, that mention of like always leaving an exit or always leaving a back door specifically is meant to trigger you to question, hey, what's that obvious fucking stone statue in the background that I've been seeing every single time? I wonder if that's important. And then when you're finally stuck in that final area, you go and check out the obvious thing that is blatantly obviously the way out, because you couldn't interact with it until then. And it's meant to be your prompt to notice that's even there. Basically, RA9 doesn't even exist. It's truly non-existent. It's just... it's everything religion's meant to be. Made up bullshit to control people. Sorry, what do you mean, why is there no VR? Not necessarily. Depending on how technology deteriorates or how technology plays out, VR might be a completely dropped concept like most other gimmicks, an example of that being motion controls in video games, in favor of something else. We do use motion controls, yes, but not as often as we do, right? Like, not as often as we did, at least. And my assumption is that VR is going to be similar. They're not going to use VR a lot in the future when androids are made, because A, you have, obviously, just android prostitutes that are going to take up most people's time, let's be honest. And two, androids can already do what VR does, but better, right? Like, if you genuinely think about it, virtual reality is often about simulating an experience that you yourself wish to experience. Androids can create an experience by acting in a certain manner, by being programmed in a certain way, thus fulfilling an experience you wish to experience, but in actual reality and not virtual reality. In most instances, that would work outside of maybe changing your overall location, right? Obviously. And that's why VR would certainly still be around, but with technological advancement in androids would not be as, I guess, like, as prevalent as it is today, would be the word I'm looking for. Because in its place you'd have android maids that fulfill a lot of fantasies for those types of people. Like, a lot of reasons people have VR is to fulfill certain fantasies of being a person in a setting with certain things. Now, that setting doesn't really matter to them, it's the certain things that often fit that setting that they want to have access to, and being there the best way currently is VR. If androids can fit that niche better than VR does, VR, while not dying out, will certainly become more of an underground type of thing compared to what it is today. Which then also asks the question of, like, red ice as a drug. If that gets popular enough that everyone's always doing it, could that make androids obsolete? Probably not, because then they'd have no one to be racist against. Valid, yeah. I hear gun. Why do I hear gun? Why do I hear gun? 28 stab wounds, of course. That Inception is gonna get worse over time, isn't it? Like, next thing you know, I'm gonna be watching this stream on another stream later, like the one I'm streaming right now. I'm gonna be watching this stream later, and I'm just gonna be like, ah yes, 28 stab wounds at the same fucking time. Again, don't you hate background noise, Wilson? I find it fucking disgusting. Right? Like, who wants to hear that? Like, I'm sure people would love to hear my moral debates with people on stream, not turkeys. Because one is content, the other is someone screaming. Yeah. Worst things worse, they're screaming louder than the fucking game most of the time. Like, it ruins the point. That's why I've only started streaming when I'm, you know, not with people down here breathing down my neck anymore. It all started in the attic, and it all ended in the attic, and it all took place in the attic. Go to the fucking attic, Lieutenant. Also, here's the thing, why do androids bleed? Think about that, too. Why do the androids bleed? Fair point. Okay, I should lower the stream volume to nothing for a minute. Okay. Now, like, the thing is, right? In Detroit, a lot of the concepts conflict with each other and the theme, right? And that, I think, is like the fifth knife in the game's gut that ended up butchering its themes for me. It does, but here's the thing, like, why artistically? Not why logically, because there's a logical reason for literally anything that you can just make up on the spot. The question is, why artistically would the game designers choose to make their obvious racial stand-ins bleed? Like, not black people shouldn't bleed, because they're not black people. Well, you get what I'm trying to say. Like, not people shouldn't bleed because they're not people, right? They want you to think that, but the thing is, they should do that through action and through, like, consequence and through interaction with characters. Not through, they bleed, so they must be people. Now moving on to the next point, here's a bunch of racism. Like, that's not how you craft a story. That's how you craft Donald Trump's arguments. You know what I mean? My also question is, where are they getting the money to make so many androids in a fucking dystopia? right? Like, what third world country and or Mexico are they extorting for that? Right? I need to know. How many walls did they have to build to keep the immigrants out? Well, it's a valid question, right? Actually, no, better question. How many walls do they have to build to keep the android slaves in? Because there is a border wall in this, both around Mexico and Canada. So they had to actually build a wall, and probably make the Mexicans and Canadians pay for it. So, like, what is their play there too, right? God, I think these are some great quotes. Don't you agree? Oh yeah, also here's another question, right? Like, the fuck is with police officers not understanding how to handle androids? And then also, what the fuck is with Cyberlife giving their androids the ability to self-destruct? Like, both of these are major flaws. Like, the police should know, logically, how to handle an android. Especially because they're apparently so common in crime, right? Fair point, the police are fucking useless. Their only good skill is their ability to mobilize. I'm not sure if you heard me there, but you know, like, it's only good that they can mobilize, right? So they're kind of useless anyways, but aside from that, the question of, like, wouldn't Cyberlife have at least briefed them once or twice on how to handle an android deviant?
Aside from being completely fucking useless.
Well, am I wrong though?
That's hilarious.
It's true.
Is it?
Yeah.
Do you do a part 2?
Maybe. Also, you should check what I'm streaming currently. It's great.
You're still streaming the exclamation mark over.
Yes, but it's kept all my voice. Which I'd argue is the important part, right? Because I am lost. I guess I am completely lost. Oh, there we go. But yeah, as I am completely lost for all things to see and do in this game, I most assuredly have a lot of things I can talk about. And you don't come to a stream to see gameplay, you come to a stream to hear based political opinions. Right?
Oh, goodness.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
How so? Also, here's a question, right? So, harkening back to our original topic about child androids as well, and how they'd be a benefit to society, can you argue the same thing for child porn, in a sense? Like, not specifically just child porn of actual children, but of hentai. Right? Yeah, like, of actual children it'd be immoral. And while I don't care much about, like, morality, I know you do. But in terms of, like,
Eso te pasa por meterte.
Stop shooting for a minute so I can punch you. Thanks. But yeah, in terms of actually, like, helping society, right? Child hentai is beneficial to humanity as a whole. For the same reason that child sex slave androids are beneficial to humanity as a whole. In fact, just take like a child-sized sex doll and stuff a fleshlight in it and you're fine. Right? Like that in and of itself, it's still beneficial to humanity because it gets rid of a lot of problems with child predators existing. What? Well, as a counterpoint to that question, right? Does having a gun in a video game pointed at a police officer incentivize, like, this, I guess what the correct term would be, what exactly was that? Again? That you said earlier? Repeat your question. I'm at a loss for words again. Oh yeah, desensitized, that's what it was. Alright, here's a question though. So, would you tell me then that what I'm doing in this game right now would... Okay, that's a child, I can't kill them. Not because I don't want to, because the game won't let me. So, would doing this in a video game be desensitizing people to violence in real life? Right? I wouldn't think so. And I think, like, hentai or sex dolls wouldn't desensitize people to fucking actual children. There's still a side of you that noticed the difference between the two and how severe that is, right? I mean, if you're broken to that point, you'd hopefully be able to at least comprehend that it's illegal, or else you'd already be dead/in jail, right? Let's be honest. So, at that point, it's also the thing of like, okay, so if they're already that broken that they're going to do that there, they either know that it's illegal and are not doing it simply because it's illegal, in which case if you give them an alternative, it lessens the harmful impact of that fantasy a bit. Whereas, if you don't give them an alternative, it causes, over time, that fantasy to build up and create a worse outcome. In my eyes, at least. So I think, even if it does somewhat desensitize it, it's the better option. Much like how video games, especially GTA 5 in their massacre mode, right, that would just kill a bunch of innocent civilians for fun. Like, sure, it may desensitize some people to the thought of violence as a whole, but it is a good way to get out a violent urge without actually harming anyone. And so I'd argue, even in that sense, it's still a net gain. And fucking child sex dolls, opposed to fucking children, is clearly a net gain. So, like, you know, there is a better alternative to the two that people just don't consider, I guess, because of those reasons that you brought up. But it is still the better alternative that humans should be working towards. Basically, this long-winded rant is asking you, why have we not made children's sex dolls yet? I'm curious. But, like, I'm not wrong about that. It would be beneficial to society as a whole. I mean, true, but the thing is, people always complain about, you know, minor attracted persons existing. and I'm only using that term to be somewhat courteous to people who have a genuine mental problem and can't just function without having to put up with that shit, because it is a genuine problem with society and humanity, but it can be caused by mental issues and not just by personal preference, right? I mean, yes, but then my question is, why would we treat the LGBTQ any differently? Not to liken the LGBTQ and, obviously, child predators, but at the same time, right, we treat them like wildly different things. The reality of it is they're not all that different in concept. They're only different in execution. One is a moral gray zone, technically, and the other is not. And of course, that moral gray zone is only a moral gray zone due to the actions of the people inside of it. Because sometimes it's perfectly fine, other times it's James fucking Charles. Anyways. That's a call out right there. True, but I mean, hey, at least I got to take that shot off, right? Like, that's worth saying, because it's true. Here's another thing, too, as well. Like, side note from that, androids. Would that be a good option to satiate Guro enthusiasts as well, if you think about it? Yeah? Yeah, but if you make, like, say a low-cost, easy-to-make, mass-produced android model, right? Girl enthusiasts would eat that shit up immediately, if you think about it. Because, like, their whole fantasy is harming things, and they can't harm people. If you make an android that bleeds, and you sell it to people at an affordable price, even if the android is complete shit, people are only gonna buy it, like, as Guro enthusiasts, because it bleeds. They can torture it.
You answered your previous question.
So you're telling me that in the world of Detroit, they only bleed because Guro enthusiasts will buy it, then? So that's why. So CyberLife are fucking geniuses in marketing. Okay. You know what? That's a new personal headcanon. Thanks for that. Yeah. But yeah, no, like, that itself is also interesting, isn't it? Because, like, androids would fix so many problems with our society. The issue is that nobody's gonna want to create them now if they think about it.
Because I already have five.
Like, this could fix child predators. This could fix people who want to kill each other for sexual pleasure. However, are you really going to, like, go through and program this shit and, like, make the materials for it yourself without thinking, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, whatever, most humans wouldn't agree to practice working on this, or even, like, care enough to listen to you. And most companies wouldn't back you, because it's a pretty controversial idea, if you think about it. Because it's playing God, and, you know, religion. So it becomes a question of, as well, of, like, why haven't we made androids yet to solve all of our world's problems by giving child predators fuckable children pussy legally, and by giving Guro enthusiasts bodies that they can actually torture legally? And it's like, because people don't want to program something that they view as immoral. It's like Hitler. He had good intentions in his mind, but the way he went about it was just not the right way. And in reality, he kind of did have good intentions, mind you. He wasn't solely fueled by racism, because a lot of his actions were solely just to boost the German economy, not fueled by racism and war. But the way he went about it was through racism and war, because it was the fastest route. Had he taken an alternate route, I'm sure he would have been a great person in history. If you think about it though, right, like logically, for a minute, his main goal wasn't kill the Jews. That was not his goal as a person. His goal was to bring the German economy back to what it was pre-World War I, or make it better, right? Because World War I screwed up the German economy because everyone blamed everything on the Germans, despite it not really being their fault. It's partially, but like, you should share blame equally between the guilty parties. However, you're not going to blame your allies, and it really just ended as everyone being an ally against Germany in the end because everyone gave up. So in reality, your options are blame Germany or blame no one, and you can't blame no one, so you have to blame Germany. Which then directly kind of caused World War II, because it was like, let's make the economy great again, and we're gonna do that by killing all the Jewish people. And it's like, okay, you know what? If you just went any other way about it, you would have been a great person. Unironically. Well, that was the whole thing they used against them, was like, oh, they're stealing all the jobs, and they're stealing all the wealth and money. Right? So he turned them into scapegoats for the economy. But the thing is, had he just went about fixing the economy by not starting a fucking war and committing racism, right? Like, literally any other way, it would have been perfect. He would have unironically been a good person, technically. Because he wouldn't have killed 1 million and something Jews. He wouldn't have killed, like, so many soldiers in a war that nobody actually wanted to fight to fix his economy. Because there were alternate options, they just weren't the most efficient options. He prioritized efficiency over morals, and, I mean, you can see where it got him in the end, right? But technically, in an alternate universe, Hitler could have been a great person. And just even saying that sounds like I'm, I don't know, high as a kite. But it's true. I mean, I am, but the thing is, it's true, right? Like, Hitler could have been a great person had he just thought about going about things a different way. Doesn't that just make you feel kind of sad for the guy? No? Okay, good. You have morals. You suck, but I mean, whatever. Apparently you require morals to be human or something. I don't quite understand that one. Yeah, the amount of shit I've said on this stream right now. Like, if I cared about my public image, that would be enough to blackmail me into doing anything. Too bad I don't. I despise cancel culture. Can I just say that, like, unironically? Like, that itself would probably get me canceled if I was Boxword. But, like, I despise cancel culture. And it's like, there's good reason for me to despise it, too. It's toxic as hell. It doesn't get anything done. It just splits communities in half. Like, nobody gives a fuck that when it was cool to swear and spam racial slurs online, like 2 years ago or some shit, your favorite content creator said the N-word once.
That was like 10 years ago.
Yeah, but like still, back when it was cool to do that shit online, it's like, oh cool, this creator said that once, they should pay for the sins and pay all black people like millions of dollars for profiting off their demise. It's like, no? Like, being controversial should not mean that you should try and ruin a man's career, like, sue them for shit they didn't do. I know there's one instance where someone got accused of rape for someone disagreeing with them on Twitter, and it led to that person literally getting fired from their job and blacklisted from most companies in their area. Even afterwards, like after it had been proven that the allegations were false, they still weren't allowed to apply for a job in most locations near them, just due to that stigma, and ended up committing suicide. In my eyes, I view that as committing murder on the terms of the person who accused them. Because they knew they were falsely accusing this person, and they only did it because they wanted to ruin the person's life, and they drove that person to suicide. I'd argue that's basically murder. The legal system would not agree with me, which is dumb, because it is quite literally murder. Yes. By law, you can be charged for murder with that. It should be. It's not classified as such. Because you are allowed to sue anyone for anything at any time. There is no guarantee you win the case, but you are allowed to sue them. Thus, you're allowed to accuse anyone of anything at any time. It may be slander, but if that accusation goes through and people believe you, people believe you. Simple as that. As such, if you were female back before the Johnny Depp case, which is again why Johnny Depp's case was such an important case in history, right? Just accusing a man of rape was quite literally enough to ruin his life forever. Now, the Johnny Depp case is working towards changing this, noting that men can be victims too, and thus that there should be evidence and things brought forward in these types of cases, and especially also in rape cases and rape allegations, as well as assault allegations and assault cases. You know, it's making that move, which is great, and honestly, Johnny Depp is a hero for it, but at the same time, it's kind of like a sort of issue with that, in the sense that you're now also reliant on gathering that evidence, something that isn't always possible. And you're also reliant on people understanding how important that evidence can be for these cases and how important these claims actually are, which they won't understand because most people are insignificant to them. You won't see an army of randoms completely, flock to protect one dude on the internet when someone else makes a minor accusation at them. And then all their girlfriends agree and go, oh yeah, this person also did this to me, and this to me, and this to me too, all at the same time, because that's what the Me Too movement really is. It's not, yes, let's go and act towards equality in the courtroom, show that people should be believed. It's like, no, you're acting towards power against men. Again, hi, welcome to feminism. Anyways, that was a tangent. And I seem to have pissed off 90% of groups, so while I do that, let's just go over the fact that BLM is a terrorist group real quick. Let's get 100% of groups pissed off at me now. Though I am not wrong about any of those statements, am I? True. So I've only not pissed off my own people. That's funny. But again, none of my statements are technically false. Right? Exactly. But that's the thing, I want to point that out. None of my statements are false. They are all, to any extent, true. Because I have not lied about anything I have stated. Which is hilarious. Because every organization I have brought up or talked about would beg you to believe I was lying the second this was brought up against them, right? And any group or gender or race would probably get really pissed off when you bring this up, right? Aside from maybe men. Men probably wouldn't care normally if you bring up all the shit about women. But Yeah. Like, the thing is, I speak the truth. I don't lie. I do, but yeah, like, not in this conversation. When it comes to important political points, I want to only speak as much of a truth as I can. Because if I make up something and don't provide reasoning or evidence to back anything up, then it just completely nulls my entire argument. What, can you not handle the levels of bass? Alright. Okay, but first though, before you go, I have to ask, right? Like, out of everything I've brought up, I think probably the most important to discuss is that final bit about rape claims, and I do want to hear your opinion. Well, yeah, but like, what are your thoughts on how the system works, right? Because the way exactly, but how do you really think the system should work? Because no matter what happens, there will be a bias. It doesn't matter. The question is how that bias is managed. And then the other question as well is like, so often, let's also harken back to the AI conversation real quick, because I also want to bring something up there, right? With AI, right, one of the main things is, imagine AI police, like are shown in Detroit, right? Now, historically, women and minority groups have been consistently considered not people. So what if your AI police uses that historical data and context to determine that a black woman is not therefore a person?
Well, obviously, it wouldn't be using data from the 1800s and modern concepts.
Not necessarily. It depends specifically how the AI has grown. But depending on how you feed it data, whether you feed it data through an open fuel where you can't tell what's going in, or if you feed it closed data, even if you feed it closed data, a lot of research papers will reference other papers, and you need to bring those papers in, and those papers will reference other papers, etc., etc. So until you get to a core point where paper does not reference anything you haven't already brought into it, right, and you need to get a self-referencing paper to do that, or with paper that moves back in at some point, what you need from that is you need in some way a setup where it's going to bring back to those older papers that use those statistics and use that historical context. Or if you do the worst thing possible and just connect it up to an online flow without telling anyone and let the data collide from there and what they put in that, then quite clearly you're going to get a very red-pilled AI that will only determine white, straight, heterosexual males as person, and everything else is not a person, right? Like, it all depends on where you're sourcing your data from.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then you end up with AI.
I do, and that's why I brought that one up. But, like, when you genuinely think about it, right, you can't really have an AI that won't be racist running a system like that, because the amount of data you'd have to put into it will include a racial bias at some point in some way. It's also true to how police patrol areas today even, right? Like, police patrol lines and routes are all already based in racism. Because the way it works is it takes where were the most crimes that happen. Well, most crimes that are caught, they don't, like, look for specific high-value crimes either. It's just all crimes. Most crimes happen in poorer neighborhoods, right? Because, you know, crimes of opportunity are more common and are more oftenly caught than a planned-out heist or a planned-out crime. As such, you're going to be catching more crimes in a lower-income neighborhood, most of which are fueled by minorities. As such, police databases often use data gathered from catching minorities and also data gathered from racist cops just labeling things as a crime even when they aren't against minorities from way back, and using that data to determine where the most crimes happen, which then leads to police patrolling those areas more, which then leads to more crimes being caught there, and it's a repeating cycle. At the same time, it also leads to police appearing more racist because they keep patrolling the same areas that all have minority groups because they're low income, right? Not stating specifically that minority groups have to be in low income areas, it's just that they're more common in like low income areas, right? So, if that is specifically how that works for police, like just overall planning and route sorting, you can't say the same won't be true for police AI, where police systems are already heavily based in racism and bias. And the sad thing is, a lot of systems seem to be based in that. Because when setting up systems, people didn't think let's only use relevant data and sort it in a smart way. People thought, let's use all our data so we get the best results, and sort it by everything is equally important. Pretty bad move, by the way, when minor crime is equivalent, like petty theft, for example, is equivalent to mass murder, but, you know. Anyway. Yeah, like, a murder is 5 points and a petty crime is 1 point. And it's like, that's how you value the crimes. It's kind of like how chess AI are taught to play chess sometimes. You have two ways of teaching them. Each point or piece is worth 1 point, or you assign point values, with queen being 5, rook being 4, knight being 3, bishop 2, pawn 1, I think. Right? And then you see what the AI does as it loses those pieces. It loses points, and as it gains, like, captures those pieces, it gains points, and that's usually how it's supposed to play. But the thing is, since that hasn't been done, a lot of data gathered is based off racism, so plugging in that data now would add more racism to the pot, making any newer systems also immediately heavily biased because you don't have unbiased data to use. And it's not like you can train a new police AI from scratch because, well, of course you can, right? You need existing data for that. See, true, but that's the thing. It's done in Detroit, which is where I'm getting this example from. Another great example would be, like, what's a commonly thought of use for AI, right? Driverless cars.
Yeah, and I was also going to say medication.
Yeah.
The doctor.
I think those are the two important ones. Doctors is complete hell. Because think about it, it might prioritize white patients over black patients. That would be terrible. Right? Exactly. Like, the thing is, it's data information, like, trade-off of knowing everything, and knowing everything permanently after seeing a result of it, versus the factor of humans are less likely to show a bias actively. And while that's all fine and dandy for doctors, I think driverless cars are where the problem normally lies, especially in collision detection and collision resolution. If you ever see those ethical conundrum or ethical, like, video game videos, right? Where you're given a series of questions about driverless cars, you understand perfectly what I'm talking about here. Yeah. Now here's the thing. First of all, it's a very dumb idea to give a car the ability to kill its passengers, period. That is my moral line in terms of where that one goes. I don't have to set a moral line normally, that's where I set mine for driverless cars. They cannot kill their passengers.
Man, I need a quick deliver. Doesn't matter how much. You coming? Fuck yeah! Yeah, I got scratched.
Like it's just driving down.
Right. Question, is the car able to detect if anyone is sitting in it? This can be done easily with basic mechanics.
Una vaca! Tenemos una vaca!
Then if it knows, if it can confirm for a fact there's nobody inside of the car, and it's about to run someone over, and the emergency brake or regular brake will not be able to save them and it's not working, crash the car. In literally any instance where there is even a remote chance that there could be a potential thing in there, like a sensor bugged out, and like, you know, if a bug check reveals it's bugging out, then immediately prioritize the car and anything that could be inside it over the lives of anything outside of it. Yes. Because the thing is, the second you give the car the ability to kill any of its passengers, you've already made a mistake. Now, the same should be true for giving the car the ability to run people over, but in a situation where it's one or the other, the passengers are the one who paid for your product. If your product is actively killing the passengers, less people are going to pay for your product, right? So if all else fails, go for capitalism. While true, I am unbiased to what is in or outside of the car. My bias is solely if you are in the car, you are safe. If you are not in the car, you are dead. Practically, yes. Well, that's the thing. Obviously, crosswalks exist and cars should be able to stop. If a car cannot stop for any reason, right, then what it needs to do... Yeah, like, one, it should have an alarm on it so police can try and stop the car manually without killing the person inside. That should be important. If the emergency brakes and regular brakes both break, then police should be alerted immediately, as should emergency, like, services, so they know that, like, what the fuck is going on. Of course, you should try and get an ambulance to save as many people as you can who get hit by the car, but if you let the car kill its passenger, that is inherently a problem. Police have a way of disabling driving cars, if need be, with road spikes. That works. You do that. Yeah. Like that too. You want something to warn civilians, not to walk in front of a car that has a broken brake. Because it's like, you want to protect as many lives as possible, but the question is, whose life do you prioritize? The driver and the people inside of the car, or the people outside of the car? And my thought process is, A, I want to be preserving lives inside of the car in all instances. One, because capitalism, but two, more importantly, because when you give the car the option to kill its passengers, you have officially failed.
I would say if there's one, then obviously the car should be able to crash, like kill those passengers. But if it's an animal.
But would the car be able to tell efficiently within seconds of having to make these calculations if it's a human or animal in the car? You might just end up with, you know, there are 4 things in the car. and you don't know what those things are. They could be baby children, a package, a person. What do you do in that scenario? Like, for example, let's say the sensor system is each seat of the car, right, has a pressure in it, like a pressure sensor. And if you're put anything, like, decently heavy, the weight of a baby, let's say, on that seat, it will actively, like, say that there is something in the car. Then if you know there are two somethings in the car, you know there are two objects that at least weigh the weight of a regular, like, newborn baby in the car. You can't verify if they are humans or not. What do you do? But the thing is, would the program that you make be able to quickly and, like, decisively distinguish between human and package that looks roughly shaped like it could be a human in seconds, right? I mean, yes, but say, for example, I tamper with the brakes of a car, right? Of someone I want dead. And that person gets in the driver's seat. And 4 of their friends get in, like, this car as well, 1 in the other side, like the passenger seat, 3 in the back, and 2 of them have heavy bags, right? And blankets over those heavy bags on 2 of the seats. Those cameras boot up. And let's say they're all wearing stuff that makes it hard to directly find skin on them, right? So they're Muslims. But like, let's say they're wearing like full head covering, right? They're wearing long sleeves, gloves, right? Your camera will not immediately distinguish between human and what they could be otherwise, right? It'll just determine their thing at first as it tries to distinguish. If you're barreling down the road at top speed and suddenly you realize, oh, the brakes don't work, right? And you haven't made that conclusion yet, or your program hasn't made that conclusion, and then also keep in mind that you're relying on a program. There's a chance it bugs out or it fails or it crashes too. But ignoring that, let's say it's a perfect program that won't fail or crash, if it doesn't make that exact like decision immediately, what should it do? If it's an unknown variable in any situation, I feel it protects the passenger, not the actual, like, street pedestrian. Yeah. Now, of course, if you determine the factor of Muslims are not people, then you don't have this problem. Because they're really the only culture that requires people to fully cover up most of the time. So, you could argue that you could just do a search skin system, which already exists and is commonly used, and determine Muslim people aren't people. There you go, problem solved. But, assuming that you're trying to be morally ethical here, that's not an option for you. As such, your real only option is to prioritize passengers almost all the time, because you don't need sleep, you need answers. Fair, but are your answers the correct opinion? But like, you do see what I'm getting at, right? Yeah. Alright, you too. I'm probably gonna stop streaming now as well. See ya. Well, that was a lot of political takes, wasn't it? Oh well. See y'all and have an amazing day.